this short video, I hope will be short, is basically my love-hate relationship as to why I love and why I hate Siril. Now, let me praise, if you are one of the developers of Siril, please do not take any of my critical comments personally, because really I think it's awesome what you guys have done, and I really appreciate the tremendous amount of work that has gone into the software over the years, and it is definitely not unappreciated for me, that's for sure. Okay, I think it's really cool what you guys are doing, and I encourage you to do it even more, and hopefully you will have even more adrenaline to go into this, and perhaps this video will give you ideas on how to make this software even better, which is something we all love. So first and foremost, the thing that I love most about Siril is the fact that it runs on the Mac, because I'm a Mac user, and I believe it also runs on Linux as well, and of course it runs on Windows too. And that's really cool, and it's also very well optimized too. It actually takes advantage of all the multiple processors that we have on our computers. I think this guy here has 64 processors in it, or at least 64 different parts of the chip that can function that way. And that's really cool that it is quick about stuff. I can stack things on this thing, and I don't really have to leave the room and come back later. I mean, it kind of does it while I'm sitting here, even if it's big files. Now, that's number one item. So number two item that I really like about Siril would be the background extraction tools that are in this software. If you haven't tried background extraction with the software, I would really encourage you to do it, or at least use Siril just for that. Because I know when I was doing a lot of one-shot color work back in the beginning days of my astrophotography, with one-shot color, you can't really filter as heavily as you can with narrowband, and the background extraction tool, it just becomes really essential, especially for, evening out those gradients from those light pollution domes that you'll probably run into. So really an essential item. A couple other little small things here would be like the green noise reduction feature that is in the software. That is something that I found very difficult to try to simulate in Photoshop, and really kind of impossible to simulate in Photoshop, really. Now, another thing that I really like about Siril here, and this would be going on to number three item, would be the arcsine transformation tool in it, which is a great way to stretch your image and also to preview stretching your image. And you can really kind of stretch your image in a way that doesn't affect your stars as much. Something that is rather difficult to do with GIMP or Photoshop both. So yeah, they've made that tool. It's pretty easy to use it. There's a few tutorials out there. Unfortunately, most of them are 20 to 30 minutes long, but it's you can do it in less time than that, trust me. Once you kind of get the hand of the arcsine transformation tool, which is basically stretching the histogram essentially, you can do it in 5 minutes. Okay. So another really cool thing about Siril, and this brings in, and this is kind of a pixel math type thing, because it is referencing a bit of a database. But anyways, there is a color calibration. Okay, there's photometric color calibration, and there's actually a third version or type that's coming out soon in Siril version 1. I think it's 4. It's coming out here very soon. I'm using 1.2 still. But anyways, it is an amazing tool in that it will really color calibrate and correct your image to what the correct color should be in a very accurate way. All right. I know often in the old days when I was not using Siril as much as I do now, I had tremendous number of problems with basically color shifts, especially in the greens, because you have twice as many green pixels on your color chip as you do red and blue, and unfortunately the green ones are the ones we don't really use at all too, because there is nothing green in space at all. But anyways, that tool, the color calibration tool, is really an essential tool. I would encourage you to do a little bit of research about it. The photometric color calibration tool is what it's called. And the other tools that are in that, basically that sub menu too, are really kind of cool to handy things to document. Okay. So let's start some of the things I don't like. Okay. So first off, the interface. Okay. The interface is not good. Okay. You have to go forwards and backwards, and there's a lot of clicking around on tabs, and as you're stacking images, I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of repetitive and there isn't a process. Okay, like for example, when I open up Deep Sky Stacker, basically on the left hand there's like a column, and you basically just follow down the steps until you get to the bottom, and then you have a stacked image. It's not the case with Siril. With Siril, you know, you're over here and you're clicking through these different tabs, and then sometimes you go forwards and sometimes you go backwards, and then sometimes you have to open sub items in the tab and then go forwards and then go backwards again. It's very convoluted. Okay, it's just a very weird way of doing things. And you know, that kind of brings up a second thing. You know, this is the second thing that I kind of don't like about Siril, is that a lot of the wording in the interface, and this has nothing to do with translation, because I know the core developers behind Siril are French, but anyways, the core, a lot of the major words that are in here, just there are better English words to use. For example, deconvolution. Okay, deconvolution, which is found underneath the image processing tab, basically means to unblurry something. Okay, that's a really confusing way of saying this is a sharpening tool. And I know some guys are going to freak out and say, oh, but it's a specific algorithm. I don't care. Okay, you're sharpening the picture. If I was to say to my wife, hey honey, I'm going to go unmess up our bedroom, that would probably confuse my wife. Okay, I think that would confuse you too. Now, if I said, hey, I'm going to go clean my bedroom, well, that's a much more concise, much easier way of, you know, of saying something. Okay. I don't like it when words are like the word means one thing, but then we have a suffix at the beginning of it that flips the meaning of the entire word on its head, essentially. Okay, that's a dangerous thing in linguistics, is what we call it. And I like studying linguistics too, by the way. It's kind of another little hobbies of mine on the side. But yeah, the history of the English language especially fascinates me. But anyways, yeah, when you reverse meanings of words and so forth with those kinds of things, it's just it makes it more difficult for people to comprehend and understand what it is you're saying, because they got to stop and think about it. You know, and then I think the third thing that I don't like the most about Siril, which I will kind of like, I'll put it this way. Okay, it seems like the guys at Siril try to be PixInsight. Okay, and if you guys, and I know the developers are going to watch this, please do not try to be PixInsight. Okay, PixInsight is one of the most awful pieces of software there is when it comes to interface design and also workflow. In fact, one of the astrophotography groups that I'm on, it's actually just a meme group. It's basically astrophotography jokes. I remember for an entire month, people were making jokes about how terrible PixInsight is, about how if there was ever a manual that was how to design an interface for dummies, PixInsight doesn't follow it at all. Okay, in fact, they took every single thing in that book and did the opposite of what, you know, how to design an interface for dummies book would look like. Okay, so Siril, please do not try to be PixInsight, okay? Because there is, I'll give you an example, just in RGB compositing alone. Okay, I remember looking up RGB compositing for PixInsight. Good grief. The first thing that I found was a guy's 45-minute tutorial on how to super easy RGB composite. Okay, and on top of that, it was a 3-video series. Each one of them was 45 minutes long. that's a lot of time, okay? That's something that, you know, in Photoshop, okay, if I was to teach somebody how to RGB composite, which is pretty easy to do in Photoshop, it would take me about 5 minutes. Okay, yeah, so please do not try to be Pixinsight. And I will give one more thing that I don't like about Siril, which is kind of like summarizes up the last 3 things that I just said here. So for example, I remember when my twin daughters were being born. We were in the hospital, and I was told, you know, you guys, you're going to be here for 3 days. So I took my laptop, and I'm the guy, so there's really not much I can do. You know, basically I sat there and waited for orders. And for 3 days straight, right, I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to take my mono images, and I'm going to figure out how to stack them in Siril and, you know, come out with a color image in the end. After 3 days of night and day, from sunup to sundown, me reading all the tutorials in their repository, watching every single thing that I could find online about stacking narrowband images in Siril, 3 days later, I still had nothing. I still had nothing. I think I had a picture that was clearly not calibrated correctly, and it was still black and white, and it was just one channel, and I still had the RGB composite. Yeah, I had nothing. Okay, it was difficult. So I wish. Yeah, a lot of that is the interface. You know, all the jumping around that you have to do. They need to go back to square one with the interface. I know it's a scary thing to say, but I mean, I would do it now before you got to do it later, okay? Because eventually what's going to happen is as you add more features and add more features to a piece of software like this, it's going to get so bloated that even you won't be able to use it, and then you'll be like, oh crap, well now we do have to do it, and then it'll be a much more difficult job. So, you know, if you are considering an interface redesign and in which you actually open some books about how to design software and stuff like that, please, yeah, do it soon. And that, I think, kind of sums up what I love and what I hate about Siril. Like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with the software. I love it and I hate it at the same time. But I definitely don't hate the people that work on it. Like I said again, thank you guys who do work on this software for making it a reality.